Good evening and welcome to the Celina Middle School Band's winter concert. We're really happy that you're here tonight. We're looking forward to performing for you. We're really excited to perform for you. These guys have made tremendous progress over the last few months, and we're excited to show you what we know. The first song that our 7th grade band is going to play is called Ovation. It's like a fanfare kind of a work to open a concert with. It's composed by a really prolific composer in the band world, especially writing for middle school and high school bands. His name's Mike Story, and you'll probably hear a lot more music by him by the time your kid finishes band. So this is Ovation. Okay, before we launch into this next piece, I just want to tell you, I started teaching in 1986, so if you do the math, that was 38 years ago. So a lot of kids have passed through, my programs under that time. I've taught at every level from 5th grade through college. And I just want to tell you that these people you see behind me right here and those folks over there against the wall are honestly some of the nicest kids I've ever had in nearly 40 years of teaching. Give yourselves and them a hand. We hear so much, about young people today and certainly they face struggles that I couldn't even imagine growing up in the 60s and 70s, and a world that the way the world is now, I think you'll all agree is not what we all grew up with. In spite of that, they're kind to each other. They're easy to work with, ready to just jump in and do whatever we ask them to do. And so you're doing a great job, first of all. And secondly, I just want to say you probably have the nicest, most peaceful homes. And there's no fighting between the siblings or anything because these guys are awesome. So anyway, our second tune is called Dark Star. It's written, the composer says that she was inspired to write this piece when she heard about an asteroid that was narrowly going to miss Earth. We get those news stories once in a while. And so she said, I should write a piece about that. So this is called Dark Star by Christina Huff. Probably should have mentioned before we started that our timpanist for that song had to go home after school. He was really sick. He looked, like a ghost. So there's something going around that they're passing around, as I'm sure you parents are aware. So if that sounded a little empty, it was the missing timpani solo parts that were in there. Our final song is called Champions Rising. And I think the name kind of speaks for itself, like what it means. And it was written by Adrian B. Sims. By the way, I should have said this before. You notice that we have like a much larger 8th grader back there in the corner. This is Mason Williams. Mason's a high school student, and he and Blake Lee, Mason's a sophomore and Blake's a senior. They come over every day, just about, and help with 7th grade percussionists, because you notice there's a lot of them. Right, and so instead of going home after school, they're dismissed they're finished with their classes at the high school, like when we have 7th grade band at 12:36 or whatever time it is, or 12:02 when they come in. So they come over instead of going home like they could and help out. So give them a hand for helping, because they don't have to do that. All right, so this is Champions Rising. This is the 8th grade band seated behind me, and they have some pretty cool, go ahead and give them a round of applause. Likewise, these guys, are willing to do just about anything I ask them, and they always have like an enthusiastic approach, and we're excited to play for you tonight. The first piece we're going to play is their music is graded based on level of difficulty. So like as we, obviously as they get older, we select harder music for them to play. And so this is kind of their first piece that starts to approach a beginning high school level. And it's called Blue Sky Horizon, written by a very prolific band composer named Randall Standridge. It was written at a time when he was emerging from a difficult time in his life, and he was finally starting to feel like, life's worth living again, and he's like charged up. So this is a very uplifting and exciting piece. Blue Sky Horizon. Our next piece was inspired by a totem pole, of all things, in Canada. And the composer was visiting a First Nations site that had been abandoned. You know, like the native Canadians had, you know, been run off of this land, but there remained this totem pole that was all overgrown with, you know, weeds and trees and stuff had grown up, you know, where in its place. But it was this huge. It was a huge raven. It was what the carving was of. It was a big wood carving. And so the name of the piece is Big Raven. The kids have renamed it. Yes, so every time I say Big Raven, I get Big Birdie. So, and the piece opens with, you'll hear some nature sounds that are recorded on an electronic track, and then the band begins to play. So this is Big Raven by Vince Gassi. You know, one of the cool things about these guys is I'm able to throw things that are weird and different at them musically, and they're always willing to just say, yeah, let's try it. You know, they don't go, oh, that's strange. I don't want to do that. That's stupid, you know. Like you might, because not that 7th or 8th graders would talk like that ever, but no, they're always just willing to jump in. And this next piece is pretty unusual. It's called Circuit Breaker. It's written in 5/4 meter, which is a pretty, you know, it's an asymmetrical meter, which means it's not broken down evenly. And then the composer grouped it in a way that it's broken down even more in a more difficult fashion. So this is a very complex meter piece of music. It incorporates electronic keyboard with it, and the term circuit breaker, or the title circuit breaker, kind of refers to its inspired by like video game music, like kind of like early video game music, so like cheap, cheesy, electronic sounds and so on, the kind of sounds that you might have in like 80s, 90s video games. And so this is Circuit Breaker, and it's also by the composer that wrote the first piece. This is a piece by Randall Standridge.
Thank you.